mentioned a minute ago that every time we show this thing, and we show it a lot, we get all sorts of feedback from people saying, why don't you show that more? I got to tell you, we show it all the time, and nobody else shows it ever. But apparently it blows everybody's minds every time we show it. And so we'll keep showing it because it is true, and it is kind of shocking. But maybe if we show it every day for the rest of the year, it will sink in. I don't know. And what this shows is outside spending in the last election, the biggest outside spenders in the last elections. And for the purposes of talking about partisan politics and what's happening in Wisconsin and what's going to happen in 2012, the important thing about this is that all of the biggest spending on the Republican side is funded by corporations, and all of the biggest spenders on the Democratic side are all unions. So Republicans getting rid of unions means they get to run the table. If they kill unions, there will be no big outside spenders on elections except the spenders who fund them. So they win every election, every state, every year, forever. It's like if you were in a Pinewood Derby race every year, and one year what you decided to do in the offseason was remove the other guy's supply of wheels for the rest of his life. So yeah, you'll still have a race every year, you and that other guy you always race against. It's just that every year from here on out, your car will have wheels and his will not. And so you will win every year. The wheel blockade in that analogy is a very good investment for you. So that's why the chart blows everybody's mind, right? It shows the dynamics at work when it comes to who is giving money. You want to know who isn't giving money? Who doesn't factor into this at all? Who essentially makes no splash whatsoever in money and politics? You. And by you, I mean you, my fellow individual human. In an average midterm election, right? So like at the time, corporations and unions and other organizations are fighting it out to fund their favored side in the election, like they were in 2010. In an average midterm election, and it's midterms, right? In 2010, the proportion of human beings, individual Americans choosing to give money to a political campaign is roughly 1%. That's it. So if money decides what happens in politics, individual Americans, 99% of individual Americans are having no influence on politics whatsoever. And why would you bother? I mean, in this election cycle, two brothers who inherited an oil and chemical conglomerate from their dad, they've said that the two of them alone are going to spend $400 million trying to defeat President Obama. Well, we're not dumb. I mean, if somebody else is going to spend $400 million, why would you bother spending what you can afford? $5 or $50 or even $500. What's it going to do? That's not like messing with your opponent's Pinewood Derby car. That's like running your Pinewood Derby car against a Lamborghini. Why would you bother? I mean, you don't go out to water the plants in a rainstorm. You don't do stuff that's not going to make a difference. As Republicans try to dismantle union rights state by state, in Wisconsin and Indiana and Ohio, everywhere they can, they are eliminating the Democrats' ability to keep up with them in big money politics. Without the unions to compete with them, the corporations and the Republicans the corporations support will just run the table. One way that Democrats and people who have to work for a living can fight back against that is by fighting for union rights. So trying to recall Scott Walker and recalling John Kasich's union stripping law in Ohio, stuff like that. Trying to play defense and hold on to their ability to compete when it comes to big money. That is the way to play defense on this. The other way, though, is to play offense. To change the game so that it's no longer just big money. So it's not just those big organizations competing with each other, but rather the 99% of Americans that are on the sidelines now are off the sidelines and into the game. Imagine if the system was set up that way, set up in a way that regular humans' contributions weren't rendered all but meaningless by all of the giant corporate and billionaire money. Imagine that. That's not impossible. And no, I'm not drunk. We haven't had an early cocktail moment today. It maybe is possible. At least it's more possible than you might have heard. Because have you heard about how Montana factors into all of this? Montana might be one way out of this national disaster that we are in right now with our politics. That's next.